Welcome back to College Hacked. Today I'm here with Will, and I cannot wait for him to share his story with you. I actually have some awesome numbers to start our conversation off with. We're a little bit guilty of not necessarily always saying what the timeline and cost and degree that the person we're interviewing was pursuing, what it was. And so I have some of that information here. So the first time I met with Will, it was October 8th of 2024. And then 2 months and one day later, basically, he finished the 13 Sophia classes that he needed. His first semester at UMPI was in January. He did 7 classes, which is amazing. Finished up in his second term. And then now, I think as of June 27th, you submitted your last assignment.
Yes, ma'am.
Amazing. Okay, great. Well, let's start off for in high school. What kind of student were you in high school? And we'll build up to how you got here.
I was not a good student from elementary school up to high school. I struggled a lot. As a person whose father never graduated high school, I struggled with education, feeling I really wasn't good enough. A big reason for me struggling in school a lot is that growing up, I was actually sexually abused by a math tutor of mine. And so my entire fifth grade year, I sit and drew pictures of castles instead of doing homework. So I never learned to add and subtract fractions, which really impacted my ability to do algebra. And I really kind of pushed away from math almost all of my adult life. I never passed algebra. I never took an algebra class until I actually finished the one in Sophia just a few months ago.
Wow. So high school, not a good experience. Definitely weren't thinking that you were going to go to college. So when you finished high school, what happened? What happened from there?
Well, actually, I was in the military. I joined the Army National Guard before I ever left high school. I remember putting that my goal was to graduate college, but I never took my SATs or ACTs, never even did like high school graduation photos because that wasn't the norm in our family. As soon as I graduated high school, and even during high school, my senior year, I was working 2 jobs. My family norm, the family dynamic I grew up with is you went to school and then you got jobs and you worked very hard. Shortly after school, I went active duty military and did that for many, many years. Traveled all over the world and actually took some college classes with a goal, but I really wasn't invested in that goal. I passed some of the classes, passed them all that I took, but it wasn't anything that I had long-term goals to actually complete. I think my last official college class before I took a seminary program was in 1995. And so that's the last time I actually went to college until when I re-enrolled just this last year.
Wow. Okay. So did a few college courses here and there, and then seminary. Tell us more about that.
I enrolled in a seminary program back in 2014, a master's degree level program. They accepted my application. I was in the top of my class. It was mostly done remote, like I went to college with. They found out my last semester while they were doing an audit that I had never completed college. And even though I graduated with honors at the very top of my class, I received a certificate of completion rather than a degree because I had never finished my bachelor's degree. And that was kind of hard. That was a little tough to digest, but it only kind of fueled me a little bit more. From that time on, I'd always created like an annual goal. I always track my goals every year to either look at going to college or take a college class. But it wasn't until last year that I did something about it when I first saw some of your videos.
Wow. I'm still stuck on the fact that they didn't realize that you didn't have a bachelor's degree. I wonder if now when you're going to have one, are you going to try and go back and see if they'll confer it for real?
I've already done that. They would say I'd have to retake the classes again. And I think
No.
I'm good. So,
No way. That's crazy. Okay, well, sorry that they're ridiculous. That's wild. But
that's
that's amazing. So I love that even though you'd had these bad academic experiences in the past, you never let that stop you from saying, okay, it makes sense for me to pursue a course or to pursue seminary now, and I'm just going to do that without giving yourself a hard time. I think a lot of people would talk themselves out of that. Do you feel like you had some healing along the way that sort of led you to a place where you could go back to school, or did you always just feel okay about school?
I was very stressed about school, and it's probably made me, especially in my adult and professional life, I have multiple certifications, especially in human resources. I'm duly certified human resources professional and have other different types of certifications and licensures that there's always types of tests you have to take. And most people in my adult life did not know that I did not have a college degree. For me, though, I can honestly say that there was always a kind of almost an imposter syndrome that you were sitting in a room with people that were always smarter than you, that had more degrees than you, and you were always afraid that someone was going to find out and, was never judged by it. But for me, it was all internal.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's probably some aspect of feeling like you overcame some demons in your high school era too by finishing the degree, because I'm sure a lot of people either told you or maybe by not telling you you could go insinuated that maybe you weren't cut out for it, or made you feel lesser than. So that's awesome that you overcame all of that to come through the degree and finish. Okay, so you were starting to say you found, I think, College Hacked on YouTube, and that was a turning point. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think I was scrolling through YouTube videos one time at an airport, looking at motivational videos that other people create, just to look at them. And I don't even remember what the video was, but it was College Hack, and it was talking about degrees. And I watched it, and I was like, well, maybe this could do something for me. And at first, I was like, okay, there's got to be a catch. It can't be this easy because of things I told myself. So I kept watching the videos and watching the videos, and then that finally led me to the point of like, you're not getting any younger. You can do this. Let's just go ahead and explore. So I went ahead and booked time, and you and I got to meet last October. I kind of went in with a chip on my shoulder, like, okay, she's going to tell me that I'm not smart enough, or I'm probably not going to be able to get a degree. But you made it so amazingly easy that I didn't have a choice but to continue on.
I love that. That's my goal in life. Make things so straightforward that you have no choice but to succeed. That's awesome. Well, good. I'm glad it was what you found you needed. So we got together. You already had a lot done. That is definitely worth saying. You had a lot of credit from military and previous college experiences and things. So when we boiled everything down and got your credit evaluation back, you only had 12 classes, I think, that you had left to do on Sophia. And then tell us about the math that you decided to do extra.
Well, one of the classes I had to take, because I didn't take a lot of my core classes in college, even though I had a lot of they accepted a lot of other education requirements for some of the other higher kind of college courses I needed to complete. I never completed college math or college English or some of the other things, even Spanish. So when I did those, I did the classes. At first, I was like, there's no way I can complete 12 college classes in 2 months. And you're like, yes, you can, just apply yourself. So once I got into a rhythm and really made time of it, I completed all 12 classes. And then I had about 4 days left before my class began. And my big concern was, there's going to be something happen that all of a sudden you're going to complete all this stuff. And they're going to say, well, you never completed algebra, so you can't graduate. So I actually went back and signed up and did the college algebra class. I actually finished it over a holiday session, and I actually finished it in 36 hours.
Wow.
Algebra with a 93. Average. And so I was like, wow, that was great. And that really got me ready for someone who hadn't been to college and who has written professionally and done professional type of reports. I would say that Sophia got me very ready and prepared to do things for college. It taught me how to do an APA 7 format. It taught me how to write research papers. It was a challenge for me, but the instructors through Sophia were very, very supportive.
Was there anything surprising when you made the transition from Sophia and the hacking platforms to UMPI?
My professors really, they pushed me extremely hard. The classes I sometimes took for granted were some of my more challenging classes. But as I came through it, especially finishing with the 4.0, I realized that my instructors were demanding my very best, and they pushed me to academic excellence, which I am very, very grateful for.
That's awesome. I knew you emailed me when you finished your final classes and said, I got A's in all my classes. And I said, you're summa cum laude. And you said, I don't know if they do that here. Tell us about how you emailed and asked.
Yeah, I asked them an email because I figured, I only completed 10 classes. I don't think I would even get that. In all honesty, I didn't know there was such a thing as summa cum laude, and now I am one. But they said, yes, you will be conferred that on your degree. And I was just like, wow, for someone who barely graduated high school. Barely graduated by the skin of my teeth. To have that academic honor, it means a whole lot to me as an adult, and for someone who's been able to move past the trauma of my childhood, but also to set a precedence for my family moving forward.
So important. I think we hear that a lot from various clients, that they have kids and they thought throughout their lifespan, I just need to work and make money. I don't necessarily need to do school. And then they have kids and they think, oh, well, now I want them to do school, or I want to show them that things are possible that are hard, or that you never get too old to go back and do the things that maybe you didn't have a chance to do before, at least when it comes to education, for sure. So I love your story. Any tips that you would share with people who are in your same position where they're thinking, oh, this works for everybody else, but maybe it's not for me?
I'll be honest with you. I was that person who said this will not work. There's got to be a catch. There's got to be something going on. There's not. You do have to put some work in. I know when we first met, you said, get all of your stuff together. And so I went through and I was like, okay, I remember all these things I did that would say, well, this will be better than getting a college degree. If I go to the FEMA School of Independent Management for and get all that, which actually counts for anthropology, just saying, or going to seminary, which counts for anthropology. When I submitted it, I was like, I'm not a failure. I have done a lot in my life professionally and on my education, for independent studies that were actually able to transfer into college credits. And so for someone who thought, gee, I only have, maybe 40 semester hours, when I got 96 semester hours that were accepted, I was kind of in shock. And it kind of said, wait a minute, you're closer than you think. So my timeline went from probably 2 to 4 to 6 years. It went down to maybe 12 months. And then when we continued to talk, you were like, no, you can probably do this in about 6 to 7 months. And I didn't believe you, but here we are.
Yay, I'm glad I was right for once. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Well, anything else that you maybe want to share or experiences that you had that you feel like it would be worthwhile to tell others about?
Going to college and doing this, and while working sometimes 60 hours a week and traveling the country, meeting with clients that I have, was it hard? Yes. Was it worth it? Yes. Is it doable? Completely. No matter what happens from this day forward, no one will ever be able to take from me that I'm a college graduate. The greatest thing is my dad now is in a nursing home. He has dementia, but one of his greatest failures that he felt in his life that his son never graduated college. Well, in the next 6 weeks, when I get my diploma, I will be able to take it to him, and he may only remember for 5 minutes, but he can check that off his list. And so, that's going to mean a lot to me that I'm able to do that for him. But more importantly, for a 10-year-old boy who drew pictures of castles in the 5th grade, I can give him his life back. And that's pretty important to me.
Wow. I don't know how to follow that. I think you've said everything that needs to be said. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. It's brave of you. A lot of people would just, not share, but there's somebody, if not multiple somebodies out there who's going to hear this and see themselves in your story and realize he did it. He did it after all this time and all of this potential damage. He turned it into something positive and didn't let it stop him from achieving the things that he wanted to achieve. So actually, before I let you go, do you have plans for the future? Are you thinking a master's degree or just use this degree for now in your job and see how it goes? What are your plans?
I'm not opposed to going back and getting school. I mean, if I went through a bachelor's degree, there's something as I'm looking at, I want to take a little break for at least a couple of months anyway, not have to submit a milestone or a final paper, and getting up at 4 in the morning to do all that. But maybe eventually I will. For me, it won't help me professionally, but personally, it will allow me to continue to grow as a human being. And I think that we should never stop learning. If you stop learning, you start dying. And so that's one thing that I want to keep living and living life to the fullest.
Amazing. We will leave it right there. Thank you, Will. And again, I'm Lauren, and this is College Hacks. Thanks for watching and join us in the next video.